China has escalated its diplomatic feud with Japan this week by sending Coast Guard ships to patrol very close to disputed islands that are claimed by both countries. China has also issued warnings to both its students as well as Chinese tourists who are either living or visiting Japan to carefully assess the risks to their safety before traveling to that country. The escalation came after comments earlier this month by Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi of Japan regarding Taiwan, which is a self-governed island which China considers as part of its territory. Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi told the Japanese parliament that a hypothetical Chinese attack on Taiwan could trigger a military response from Tokyo, something that was seen as breaking from Japan's age-old policy of non-involvement in the affairs of other countries. On Friday, the Chinese embassy in Tokyo warned its citizens against traveling to Japan because of serious safety risks there. China, though, did not provide any further details about what these threats were. But the warning could affect an important part of Japan's tourism. Nearly 7 million Chinese tourists visited Japan last year, accounting for nearly 1 in 5 international tourists, according to the Japanese Tourism Bureau. Chinese tourists collectively spent more than 1 trillion yen while visiting Japan last year. This would be severely damaged given the ongoing political tensions. On Sunday, China's Coast Guard said that some of its ships were patrolling the waters of uninhabited but disputed islands. These islands are known as Diaoyu in China and Senkaku in Japan. It used to be owned by a royal family in Japan, but since the end of World War II, it has been controlled by Japan. China contests Japanese control of these islands. These islands are north of Japan's westernmost islands and they are closer to Taiwan, and hence the comments by the new Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi assumed significance.
戦艦を使ってですね、そして武力の行使も伴うものであれば、これはどう考えても存立危機事態になりうる、ケースであると私は考えます。
China regularly conducts what it describes as enforcement patrols in the waters around these disputed islands, but this latest patrol was the first one since Takaichi assumed office last month. This month's feud between China and Japan had ended now what is a brief diplomatic honeymoon between both countries. Sanae Takaichi, who's a conservative prime minister who's been in office for less than a month now, had a very warm meeting with China's top leader Xi Jinping last month in South Korea. Now relations between China and Japan for the last many decades has been prone to flare-ups, fueled largely by atrocities which the Japanese army committed in China during World War II. Chinese students are regularly taught and reminded about the Nanjing massacre of 1937, for which Beijing believes Tokyo has never really apologized. There's also the issue of comfort women, or the rape of thousands of Chinese women by Japanese troops during the war. Takaichi's comments in Parliament on Taiwan were not a significant revision of Japan's long-standing position of support for Taiwan, but they broke with the previous Japanese policy of avoiding any explicit mention of Taiwan, particularly when it comes to survival threats. Now, under this classification, survival threats, which under Japanese law, the Japanese government is allowed the deployment of the country's military. Otherwise, Japanese governments are barred by the Constitution from deploying troops abroad. So, like the United States, its close military ally, Japan too has long adopted a policy of strategic ambiguity when it comes to Taiwan, which means Japan's intentions are vague regarding any future Chinese military attack on Taiwan. Although Takaichi later said that her comments did not constitute a change of Japanese policy, China's foreign ministry demanded that she retract her remarks. Chinese diplomats and commentators unleashed a stream of vitriol against the Japanese Prime Minister on social media. And this is a pattern that we've seen since 2010, when both countries and their contested claims over these uninhabited islands first flared up.
日本首相高市早苗发表错误的涉台言论，严重伤害了中国人民的感情，严重恶化了中日人员交流的氛围。日方应当恪守中日4个政治文件的精神，立即纠正错误言行，防止中日关系受到进一步损害。
In its travel advisory, the Chinese embassy in Tokyo said that Japan's leaders had made blatantly provocative remarks regarding Taiwan. This, according to them, severely damages the people-to-people exchanges between China and Japan. This is not the first time, though, that China has leveraged its outbound tourists and its students during a diplomatic or trade dispute with another country. Back in April, as the trade war between Washington and Beijing escalated, China's Culture and Tourism Ministry warned travelers to fully assess the risks of visiting the United States. Separately, it also warned Chinese students who were traveling to the United States for studies to be more careful. More than 250,000 Chinese students study in various American universities, but that number has dipped recently, in part because of the ongoing trade tensions. In 2020, China issued an advisory warning its citizens against visiting Australia because of what it described as increasing racist attacks on Chinese nationals during the coronavirus pandemic. Those warnings were issued at a time when Australia was leading calls for an investigation into the origins of the coronavirus, which started in Wuhan. In 2017, as relations between South Korea and China deteriorated over South Korea's decision to deploy an American anti-missile system, China banned group tours from its country to South Korea. So China has systematically used its leverage when it comes to trade or tourism to further push its political agenda. This latest rift between China and Japan comes at a time when Xi Jinping, who's now well into his third term, has reportedly given an unofficial deadline of 2027 to the Chinese army to annex Taiwan, either by force or through peaceful means. 2027 is important because it marks the 100-year anniversary of the founding of China's People's Liberation Army.
Been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the they're doing.